The watcher in the woods. The trees had always been there, standing silent at the edge of our property. My grandfather built this house in 1952, and the forest was old even then. But it wasn't until I inherited the place that I noticed something was wrong with the woods. I moved in last October. The first few nights, I slept soundly. But on the fourth night, I woke suddenly at 3:17 a.m. Something had pulled me from sleep. A sound, perhaps, or just that ancient instinct that tells us when we're being watched. I went to the window and peered out at the tree line. The moon was bright enough to cast shadows, and the forest stood like a wall of darkness. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed something odd about one of the trees. It seemed out of place, thinner, more angular. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shape. And then it moved. Just a slight shift, like it was adjusting its weight. I jerked back from the window, heart pounding. By the time I gathered the courage to look again, whatever I'd seen was gone. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been a deer, or perhaps a bear. The woods were full of wildlife. But deep down, I knew better. No animal stands that tall, that still, or moves in quite that way. Each night that followed, I would wake at exactly 3:17 a.m. Each night, I would go to the window. And each night, the figure would be there, always a bit closer to the house than before. I installed motion sensor lights and cameras. The lights never triggered. The cameras recorded nothing but static during those early morning hours. Yet still, I would wake, and still, I would see it, a tall, thin silhouette among the trees, watching my home, watching me. After 2 weeks, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my sister and asked her to stay over. She brought her dog, a massive German shepherd named Rex who feared nothing. That night, we stayed up late talking, and I finally dozed off on the couch around 2 a.m. The sound of Rex growling woke me. The clock on the wall read 3:17. My sister was sound asleep in the armchair, but Rex stood rigid by the large picture window, hackles raised, a low continuous growl emanating from deep in his chest. I approached slowly and placed a hand on his back. His muscles were tense, trembling. Outside the window, I could see it clearly now, and no longer at the tree line but standing in the middle of my yard. It was tall, at least 7 feet, impossibly thin, with limbs that seemed too long and bent at unnatural angles. It had no face that I could discern, just a smooth, pale oval where features should be. As Rex's growls grew louder, the thing's head rotated toward us, not a natural turn, but a mechanical swivel that reminded me of a security camera. My sister stirred in her chair. "What's wrong with Rex?" she murmured sleepily. "Don't look outside," I whispered. But of course, she did. She saw nothing. The yard was empty. When I looked back, the figure was gone too. But I knew what I had seen. And so did Rex, who refused to leave the window for the rest of the night. My sister left the next morning, concerned but unconvinced. She suggested I see someone about stress or possible hallucinations. Maybe I should have listened. That night, I awoke again at 3:17. This time, I didn't need to go to the window. The figure was inside my house. I could hear it moving in the hallway outside my bedroom, not footsteps exactly, but a soft, scraping sound, like something being dragged across the floorboards. My door was closed but not locked. I lay paralyzed in bed, unable to move, unable even to scream. The scraping stopped outside my door. Then came a sound that still haunts my dreams, a slow, deliberate tapping. 3 gentle knocks, almost polite, as if it were asking permission to enter. I held my breath. My phone was on the nightstand, but who would I call? What would I say? The doorknob began to turn, slowly, silently. With a surge of desperate courage, I lunged for the lamp and switched it on. Light flooded the room and the doorknob stopped turning. For the rest of the night, I sat with every light on, back pressed against the headboard, watching the door. When dawn finally broke, I packed a bag and drove to a hotel in the next town. I stayed away for 3 days. On the 4th day, I returned home with the contractor to discuss selling the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Beautiful property, the contractor said as we walked through the rooms. Been in your family long? My grandfather built it, I replied. Back in the 50s. He nodded thoughtfully. He must have had good reasons for all the modifications. Modifications? Yeah, the reinforced basement foundation, the unusual wiring, and of course, the symbols. He pointed to the door frame between the living room and hallway. I had never noticed them before. Small, intricate symbols carved into the wood and then painted over, barely visible unless you knew to look for them. The same symbols were on every doorway in the house. What are they? I asked, a chill running down my spine. Old protection wards. My grandmother used to carve similar ones, supposed to keep things out. He chuckled. Or in some cases, keep things in. That night, I checked into another hotel and researched the history of the property. 3 hours of digging through online archives revealed that before my grandfather built our house, the land had belonged to a small religious sect that practiced what the newspapers delicately called unorthodox rituals. I never returned to live in that house. I sold it at a loss to a developer who planned to tear it down. The night before the demolition was scheduled, I drove out one last time to collect the few family heirlooms I'd left behind. It was nearly sunset when I arrived. The house stood silent, waiting. I worked quickly, loading boxes into my car. As I was leaving, something made me pause at the edge of the property and look back at the tree line. There, among the darkening shadows, stood not one but 7 tall figures, their pale, featureless faces turned toward the house, watching, waiting. For what? I didn't want to know. I drove away and never looked back. The house was demolished the next day. Sometimes I wonder if that was enough. If the symbols my grandfather carved had been holding something back all these years, what happens when those barriers are finally broken? I still wake up sometimes at exactly 3:17 a.m. And sometimes, just before I open my eyes, I hear a soft, gentle tapping, like something politely asking to be let in.